Good evening and welcome to We the People, brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Minneapolis. My name is Joan Higinbotham and I'll be your host for this evening's program. Seems like those of us who live in the metropolitan area are always on the move, taking the kids to school, getting the groceries, driving to work, taking the train to work. Well, we have many ways of going to all these different places. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the transportation system that gets us from here to there and back again. So our guests this evening are two folks who have a lot of expertise in that area. Our first guest is Kevin Reich, and Kevin is the First Ward Council member for Minneapolis. And more importantly, right now, you chair the Transportation and Public Works Committee, right?
That is correct, yes.
So that is good. And the First Ward is?
Northeast Minneapolis, soon to be the home of MTN.
Right, that's right. We're moving up there soon. And Jennifer Munt is a District 3 representative on the Met Council. And Jennifer, I know that not only are you on the Met Council, but you also have a long history with transportation, don't you?
That's right. I was one of the people who believed that we could make light rail work in the Twin Cities. When we did Hiawatha, they said, you can't fund it, you can't build it, and you can't get people to ride. We proved them wrong, and now there's a huge appetite for more.
So you're just the perfect people to talk about this tonight. Well, what I said we were going to talk about is something called the 2040 Transportation Plan. It's 2015, so that's a long time from now, and it's part of what's called Thrive MSP 2040. Can you just tell us a little bit about how the Met Council has sort of rolled this out?
Well, Met Council is two things. We're the regional planning agency to make sure that we are planning a region that has services that are coordinated. We're responsible for buses, flushes, parks, and affordable housing. And so when we do our Thrive 2040 plan, we're looking for a plan that can help guide the growth of the region over the next 30 years. The Transportation Policy Plan is one of the systems plans that's part of Thrive 2040. And the Transportation Policy Plan is a plan to help us manage traffic congestion and improve our mobility to the year 2040. And frankly, Joan, when we talk about transportation, we often talk about pavement and tracks. What it's really about is connecting people to work, to school, to their family, and to opportunities to live a better life.
Now, how does that impact us here in Minneapolis?
Oh, it can't be really overstated that we are a central part of the regional system, both geographically, but in terms of the amount of people that are moved and served, no one can match the numbers of the two core cities. And so when a plan works for the region, it's really going to have to work for us as well. And I believe the 2040 plan really recognizes the importance of the central cities in supporting the overall system. That's not to say it's an us-them sort of dynamic. It's really to recognize what roles can be played by dense urban cores and how that supports a far-reaching regional system as well, all the way out to the third-ring suburbs, that it is one system that we play a role in.
Now, is this unique? I know the Met Council has always been sort of looked upon as an unusual beast, but is this kind of regional planning common?
It's quite common. I think one of the unique components, as a matter of fact, all regional areas, the federal government only recognizes one regional planning body, and we're that body. What is unique about ours is we do have this dual system of electeds that serve on the Transportation Advisory Board. We also have supporting entities such as the CTIB, which is the County Transit Investment Board, and we have the appointed body through the governor. So the structure, it might be a little unique, but the function is absolutely consistent with all the metropolitan regions in the country.
And Joan, our goal at the Met Council is to work in partnership with all the cities throughout the region. And what we're able to do is give folks a sense of what the census is telling us and what the region is going to look like into the future. So there were three things that we were able to forecast. First of all, we expect to see 800,000 more residents in the 7-county metro area by the year 2040. We also know that 43% of the region will be people of color. Mm-hmm. We want to capitalize on the opportunities that brings to the region. We also know that millennials want to be less auto dependent. They want to be able to leave the car in the garage, take transit, walk, and bicycle to their destinations. And we also know that we've got an aging population where we'll have twice as many seniors by the year 2040 as we have today. And that's going to put huge demands on services like Metro Mobility.
Now, when you look at Minneapolis, what are sort of our priorities here as far as what we need to think about first?
Well, one of the things that we really want to prioritize and we think is better reflected in the current 2040 plan than maybe many previous plans and certainly recent plans is the connection between economic development, housing, and transit. To think of them in an isolated way to any degree, I think it really misses the best way to manage those resources. And so I think the 2040 plan, we are very appreciative of that as a city because it really says these things are interconnected. The way we'll evaluate how funding gets distributed will have that lens. And I think that's a very good thing in terms of how we prioritize our investments. So the city of Minneapolis sees as a priority how we think about things in their totality as a top priority, because other things will follow, more specific things will follow from there. Another thing we think is a priority is to really invest in our high-functioning, high-frequency bus routes. They serve a lot of people. When you say opportunity, and it doesn't matter who you are, if you're a millennial with a high-paying job and you just like that lifestyle, it serves them. If you're someone who does not have a car but wants to work and have opportunity for your family, it's there for them too. So in terms of delivering an opportunity in a real tangible, granular way, what Met Council is proposing to do is really welcome to the city of Minneapolis because it matters to a lot of people's lives.
So I thought the word, which we hear a lot and we don't really know what it means, but the multimodal transportation system, and I think you've already sort of alluded to it, but can you sort of define what a multimodal transportation system is?
Well, certainly it's basically saying you have a system that recognizes that however you need to move or however you want to move, that the system accommodates that. And so if I'm a bicyclist, can I commute to work? And it's not just there for recreation. If I take the bus, can I not only take the bus, but maybe I have to drive to that park and ride in the outer ribs because they don't have the bus route on every sort of cul-de-sac out there in Burnsville. Can I get to that effectively? Can I transfer into a bus? And can I get downtown effectively? There are two modes that intersect. So it's not only accommodating different modes and having infrastructure for them, but making sure that they are well designed to interface with each other in effective ways. So one person might be able to take the car, get on the bus, hop into a skyway, and be at work. That's three modes right there.
Now I know that's something that's very, very important. The connections is something that's really a focus of the plan.
Absolutely. The beauty of Metro Transit operating the transit system in Minneapolis is that we're able to make sure that the buses meet the trains and that the bicycle and the pedestrian environment around the area is planned in a way that we can get people to their destinations. The problem that the region sees right now is that we've got crumbling roads and bridges, we've got inadequate transit where only 10% of our jobs are adequately served by transit and only 25% of the residents have convenient access to transit. And we also have many unsafe bike and pedestrian routes that need to be improved. So there is a huge need to fund that kind of infrastructure so we can continue to be a place where people want to live and work and play.
What are the funding priorities for Minneapolis?
Well, we want to be able to maintain the system that we have, and I think that's a challenge regionally as well. We've invested in a pretty robust road system, and now the time has come for many of these infrastructure investments of the past. We need to maintain them. Now, of course, what we've been talking about in terms of multimodals, we also want to maximize their use, maximize how they touch people's lives and provide opportunity, and that's going to take some serious money. And if we want to do that in a coordinated, comprehensive way, we need to find new revenue, plain and simple. It's one thing to find temporary revenue for a few projects year in, year out, but at this state and time we need to sort of reboot our system, honor the legacy investment of the past, and look to the future. And to do that in a comprehensive way, we need new resources, not just for the initial capital investment, but the operating, the operating commitment that's contained that's part of those investments. Some could say, oh, we'll just do a capital project, we'll bond for certain projects, and that'll be good. We'll call it a day. Make sure the number, how much do you need? Well, that kind of excuses ourselves from the commitments ongoing that are both short-term maintenance and then long-term reinvestment that after wear and tear you have to reinvest in, which is the place we find ourselves in now.
Now, there are two scenarios in the traffic plan, transportation plan. The resources we have now and additional resources. And what is the difference between the two?
That's right, Joan. If we have the existing funding, we'll be limited in how we're able to expand the system. If we get the additional half-cent sales tax in the 7-county metro area, we will be able to increase our bus system by 30%. We'll be able to add 1,000 new bus shelters so that people who are waiting for the bus aren't frostbitten by the time it gets there. We also will be able to add 20 transit ways that would include the Southwest Light Rail line, the Bottineau Light Rail line, and a multitude of bus rapid transit lines throughout the metro. It is a visionary plan, and there is a great proposal for funding it. The authors are Minneapolis Senator Scott Dibble and Minneapolis Representative Frank Hornstein. And basically, the needs statewide for transportation are $10 billion because we have failed to invest in our infrastructure for decades.
That's with a B.
Billion, that's right, and that's a really big number. But what we're really talking about is $1 billion a year over the next 10 years. And the cost would be less than what most folks spend on coffee.
So this is a half-a-cent sales tax in the metro area.
That's right.
And would it be dedicated funding?
Yes.
The Move Minnesota Group, which is a coalition of 200 organizations that are lobbying for transportation funding this session. It includes Minneapolis Mayor Betsy Hodges and St. Paul Mayor Chris Coleman. We are saying that any real solution needs to do 4 things. First of all, it needs to be long-term. It needs to make a 10-year commitment to funding transportation. And the reason for that is people can't make life choices about where they're going to live and where they're going to work unless they know that the bus route that's there today won't be cut tomorrow. We also need to have a system that balances transportation needs statewide. It needs to be comprehensive, and by that I mean it needs to include roads and bridges, but also transit, bike, and pedestrian infrastructure. And finally, it needs to be dedicated. The easiest way and the fairest way to pay for this is through modest user fees and taxes. And if that's the case, the money needs to be dedicated to transportation.
So your user fees, are you talking about in addition to the sales tax, or is the sales tax will be a generalized sales tax in the 7-county metro area?
The proposal for funding transit is for an additional half-cent sales tax in the 7-county metro.
Now, what about a gas tax on the state?
The Hornstein-Dibble bill proposes a 6.5% wholesale fuel tax.
Wholesale fuel tax.
Wholesale fuel tax, and that would fund roads and bridges throughout the entire state.
So that's sort of a, now as I recall, my notes say $6 billion for roads the governor proposed. And that's another 10-year plan, I think, as far as he's concerned. Well, so Minneapolis, it's not just roads in Minneapolis, though. We've got other stuff that we have to worry about.
Indeed we do. And talking top of the list in terms of big ticket items, bridges. It's one of the things I think that bonds the issues that we have with limited funding and the need for more funding in terms of infrastructure investment, which really connects us and bonds us with greater Minnesota. If you're a small town and you have a bridge that you, even if it's a small bridge that you're responsible for, it can be a real big ticket item. For example, looming in our set of responsibilities is probably a $40 to $50 million. And this isn't a complete redo, this is just a minimally needed redo of the 10th Avenue Bridge that connects downtown to the University of Minnesota, a very important connection. However, for a municipality, that's a lot of money. And so bringing new monies isn't just to also expand and intensify our multimodal initiatives around transit. This is about giving us some breathing room on these big ticket items so we can take care of them. And at a municipal level, a city level, that's very important because you can really drain a budget quick with 1 or 2 projects.
And I think we all think a lot about bridges after the 35W bridge. So if you want to get me excited about building a new bridge, just mention that and I'll be on board.
An unfortunate wake-up call.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, now, I know the other thing that sort of gets people excited is the light rail. And, of course, right now, I think we've finally gotten through the morass and we're actually going to do the Southwest Light Rail now.
That is my belief. Obviously the city went through a process where we wanted to engage and make sure it meant the most for our citizens. Metro Transit was a very good ally in that conversation, and the project team heard us, implemented our concerns and issues, and thought, how can we maximize the city's perspective in maximizing the system in many ways is a local community, giving them local intel for them to make it a better project. And we got to that place, and we're happy to hear that the other jurisdictional partners, Park and Rec, et cetera, see the value and have been able to work through issues, is my understanding. Now,
how is this going to meet our objectives of equity and the kinds of things that we're looking for from Eden Prairie to downtown Minneapolis and to St. Paul, actually?
Well, certainly, this is a big connector, and it's not just getting people from the outer ring or the near ring to the city core to go to work. Yes, we are a driver for economic employment, but there are jobs all around the region, and we want to bring people to those regions effectively. So if you're in a community in Minneapolis, and now you'll have immediate, quick, comfortable access to jobs, say in Eden Prairie, Edina, not Robbinsdale, that's another line. But those areas also have employers, and we want our people to have access to those as well.
It's not only coming in from the suburbs, but it's also in the city going out.
Absolutely. It's often not talked about, but very much a reality.
Now, as we look at this plan, people are saying, well, yes, maybe they like the light rail, but as you mentioned, you have to have the connections to it so that you can get to your place of work. How does that fit into the planning?
Well, just briefly, touching on when we had our conversations with the project team, we really did focus on those connection points. So is there existing investment, like a bus line or a bike trail that we can connect to and align them? And if not, maybe we need to make adjustments to the system or new investments to connect. And so there was a real commitment to do that. And so we have had some great conversations about how to connect pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit riders to certain stations, and how to create areas that might not have those infrastructure amenities. Let's focus and let's make a commitment outside of the project to make those investments too, and that's been a very productive conversation.
Joan, I was the former president of Transit for Livable Communities, and we were fortunate to have $25 million in federal funding to improve the bicycle and pedestrian realm in Minneapolis. And it's my hope that in working together, we will be able to make the Kenilworth Trail a better experience for bicyclists after light rail is built. What I'm hearing from a lot of bicyclists, many of them are 50-ish, and they're saying, I used to be able to commute all the way to work on my bike. Now I'd like to take my bike part of the way, jump on the train to complete the commute. So we're trying to make those kind of connections happen. And in terms of equity, the sweet spot for Met Council is where we're able to connect living wage jobs to affordable housing along a transit corridor. The $1.6 billion investment in Southwest will be a magnet for new development, as we've seen already along the first part of the Green Line. Central Corridor opened this year. Ridership has surpassed anyone's expectations, and we've already seen $2.5 billion in economic development along the line. By extending that line, not just connecting the Twin Cities, but connecting Minneapolis to Eden Prairie, I think we'll be able to increase development and increase opportunity for everyone.
And I think that's a very good point you raise. There's nothing that attracts development, and we've heard that from developers themselves. We've seen it in terms of the project success, like the Green Line, and then even looking to other regions, how the economic benefit and development benefit they've received from fixed rail investment. There's something about a municipality or a regional commitment to that line that gives some assurity to developers to put their money into an area. And so there's where the businesses can build, the developers can build the buildings, the businesses can move in, and they can have some assurance that that investment is not going away anytime soon. It's amazing how that triggers the market in a particular way.
Now, I noticed that I was just reading in the newspaper that Mayor Hodges said that because of the way the traffic flowed along the Hiawatha route, they didn't have as much business there as they had anticipated, and they were being aware of that when they do the next line. Is that true?
That resonates, and in many ways the Hiawatha line is sort of like the first child. It had to really prove itself, and the first proof in any transinvestment: does it move people effectively? Does it connect hubs effectively? And I would say it was a massive success on that front. I mean, the way our airport and Bloomington as a regional economic driver and Minneapolis now interact, it's incredible how that has bridged those two communities in a very effective way, and also has exceeded ridership projections in terms of how it moves people. Now, was it as large of an economic driver as one would think, or as much as the Green Line is proven to be between the two urban downtowns? Perhaps not. However, the development that has happened would absolutely not even be considered if it weren't for that line. And we do have multiple multi-family residential units that have been put in. Some definite economic development has gone in that area. Has it been one smashing success all the way through and kind of an instant success story? Not quite. But certainly we've gotten much more tax revenue out of the investment than we would have otherwise, and that means something.
Has been a win-win in that situation.
Yeah, it's a big deal for a municipality to have that outcome.
Now, one thing it hasn't, people say hasn't worked out as well, and I'm not sure that's true, and that is the commuter rail that goes north, and that the ridership wasn't what they predicted, and we're subsidizing rapid transit and all that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think we're always subsidizing roads too, so I guess it's not...
That's very true. People don't understand how much a freeway costs. A simple interchange can be tens of millions of dollars, and that's subsidized. With transit, we figure we get our money's worth, and here's why. Every bus that you see takes 40 cars off the road. So even if you don't ride transit, it benefits you. Now, we learned a lesson with the North Star commuter rail line. That line should have gone all the way to St. Cloud if we truly wanted it to succeed. When we're planning these transit corridors now, we're making sure that we don't cheap out and shortchange our success.
Now, what about buses? People say that they're still sort of, they think the train is bright and shiny and exciting, but that the bus is still sort of not so much.
Well, there's certainly an effort to change that perception. I think the bus rapid transit system that's being developed by Met Council and implemented now, they're taking the customer in mind. And I would say if you look at how they're designing the stations and the amenities and the real-time information and the level of comfort and speed that are afforded by the BRT systems, I think that perception will change rather rapidly. And I know Metro Transit staff are really banking on that mindset shift.
The bus rapid transit is really exciting because it's the same upgraded customer amenities that you get on light rail. So there'll be pre-boarding fare payment so that you don't have to do that on the bus. You don't have to search your pockets for the change. That makes the trip much faster. We, in many cases, will have a dedicated right-of-way with signal timings so that the trip can be much faster than a typical bus route. Now, buses are the workhorse of our system. And, I see my grandkids who want cars the moment that they're 15 and they get their provisional permit. When I went to school at Marshall U High in Dinkytown, there was no parking lot for kids with their cars. We need to make it cool to take transit. We need to make it cool to take the bus. And I think bus rapid transit will put us on that path.
Mm-hmm. And in addition, we're being helped immensely by the coolness of iPhones. You can't really or shouldn't be using your iPhone in the car, but a lot of the millennials that we know about anecdotally, and even studies now are bearing this out, that freedom to them isn't so much gear jamming in a Barracuda, as much as it is being able to get an interface on the media on your phone.
So in other words, the phone on the train or on the bus is the way to go.
It's the new freedom. Mm-hmm.
And Joan, I'll tell you what that means in terms of a parent's life. I've got a constituent who works at Wells Fargo in downtown Minneapolis. She's got a 1-hour commute to get to work. Her employer credits her with working 2 hours during her commute to and from work. So she only needs to spend 6 hours each day in the office. That means she gains 2 hours every day with her kids.
This means she's working on the bus as she rides into town?
Exactly. She's got Wi-Fi on her iPad, and she's able to work and do emails and all of the business as though she was in the office. What that means is that Dawn is never going to leave Wells Fargo. They're not going to have to invest in retraining a different worker for her position. And she's got a benefit that makes motherhood possible. That's a huge change in the way we live our lives.
And more people are riding their bikes, another change.
Oh, absolutely. We don't have the mode shift there, say, of a Denmark in terms of having 30% commuters, but we've had significant increases over the years, and we really want to take advantage of that desire to do it. We're the #1 bike city. Sorry, Portland and Seattle, we nudged you out again, but we certainly want to see more of that, and we'll get more of that if we invest in that. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't have the type of car traffic counts if we didn't have the infrastructure to support it. We shouldn't be able to expect that kind of commuter biking counts without giving them the infrastructure. And that's more than just having the recreational trail that tries to find the scenic route. It's more than just having some striping that kind of gives a little bit of dedicated space. It's having protected bike highways that get people to work.
So that people really will be able to commute. It's not just for fun anymore, it's for work as well.
It's serious transit. Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope this has given you a little idea of all the options and all the things that are happening and all the things that need to happen here with transit, not only in Minneapolis, but in the whole metropolitan area. And you can go online and you can check out what's happening. And this is available, and I'm seeing public.info at metc.state.mn.us. So you can find this handy-dandy information online as well as in a hard copy form. So thanks to our guests this evening, Kevin Reich, First Ward Council Member, Minneapolis, and Jennifer Munt, Met Council Representative for District 3. Thanks to both of you. And thanks to you for tuning in to We the People. This is Joan Higinbotham for the League of Women Voters saying good night. We hope you'll join us again.